Archetype has confirmed that Exodus will not have a full character creator. Instead, players will choose between male or female Jun and customize a curated set of features such as hair, facial hair, eye color, makeup, and tattoos. And the reactions have been intense. Across YouTube, Reddit, X, and the Exodus community itself, hundreds of players are expressing disappointment. Some have gone so far as removing the game from their wishlist. Others now plan to wait for a review or a discount, or turn their attention toward the Expanse, Osiris Reborn. But this is not simply outrage over losing a few sliders. Some players wanted to create a Jun who reflected their appearance, identity, or preferred role-playing persona. Others believed broader character creation was already part of the promise, and that belief did not come from nowhere. However, somewhere during development, the plan changed. Now, that does not automatically make Exodus a worse RPG. A well-defined protagonist can work extremely well, but it changes the trade-off. If Archetype is asking players to give up the ability to create that identity themselves, then Jun has to be compelling enough to carry it. And that is now something Exodus has to prove. The earlier promise. This is where the earlier messaging matters. In a 2023 interview with IGN, Archetype's Chad Robertson was asked directly about character creation in Exodus. His answer was clear.
Is it a bespoke character like the characters that we saw in the trailer, or are we going to be creating our own characters?
You'll be creating your own,
okay,
definitely.
Yeah.
Like we really value player agency and view that as customization, and all the things that come with that is super critical to making the player feel engaged with an RPG part of the game. We're excited about that.
So this was not simply a future players imagine on their own, or an expectation created entirely by comparison to Mass Effect. Character creation was publicly discussed by the studio itself. Archetype's new statement now says that somewhere along the way, the team made a creative decision to build a more defined Jun. Instead of a full slider-based creator, players will receive curated cosmetic options around an established face and identity. That is a meaningful change. We do not know exactly why it happened. It may have been driven by narrative direction, performance capture, facial animation, production scope, or the difficulty of supporting a highly customizable protagonist across cinematic scenes. My own suspicion is that time and production pressure also played a role, especially with Exodus currently targeting a release date of 2027. But that remains speculation. What we can say is simpler. The original public plan involved a character creation. The current plan does not. And with Exodus targeting 2027, Archetype waited surprisingly long to make that distinction clear. What players feel they lost. The strongest criticism is not really about sliders, it is about ownership. For many players, creating a character is part of the role-playing itself. It allows them to decide who enters the world before the first dialogue choice is ever made. That can mean creating someone who reflects their own appearance or identity, or it can mean inventing someone completely different. Either way, the character begins as theirs. Curated hairstyles, tattoos, makeup, and eye colors can still offer some expression, but for players who expected to shape Jun's face or broader appearances, that is not the same thing. It can feel less like creating a protagonist and more like choosing which version of the same protagonist to wear. And that disappointment becomes harder to separate from the earlier messaging. Because once a future has been publicly discussed, changing it does more than remove an option. It raises questions about trust. Some players are now wondering what else may have changed during development, or whether Exodus is becoming less of the RPG they thought it would be. Those concerns are not proof that other systems have been reduced. but they are a predictable consequence of making a major design change clear this late. Why a defined protagonist can work. But an author protagonist is not automatically a weaker RPG protagonist. Mass Effect is the obvious example. Commander Shepard has a defined history, voice, and place within the world. Players can shape Shepard's appearance and decisions, but they are still playing a character who already exists. That structure allows the story to build relationships, cinematic scenes, and personal stakes around someone the world recognizes. And for me, that trait can work. I normally play Mass Effect as the default male Shepard, and I will probably do the same with Jun. So personally, the lack of a full character creator is not a major problem. But that does not mean character creation is unimportant. In a game like Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, or Oblivion, where imagining and creating your own identity is central to the experience, losing that freedom could be close to a deal breaker. Character creation is not equally necessary in every RPG. It depends on the promise the game is making. And Exodus now appears to be promising a protagonist we shape through decisions rather than one we create from the ground up. That can work, but only if Jun feels like a character worth inhabiting. What Jun now has to prove. Archetype now has to prove that Jun is not simply a more restricted protagonist, but a more defined one. The writing has to give him a clear presence in the world. The performance has to carry emotional weight. The relationships around him has to feel specific. And the dialogue choices still needs to give players meaningful control over who he becomes. Because there is a dangerous middle ground here. A protagonist can be too fixed for genuine self-expression, but still too indistinct to justify taking that freedom away. If Jun feels memorable, reactive, and deeply connected to the people and history around him, then the trade may prove worthwhile. But if he feels like a mostly blank avatar wearing an established face, players will understandably wonder what they gained in return. Could the decision change? With Backlash this intense, Archetype may decide that the current compromise costs more than a delay. A proper character creator could return. The available presets could be expanded, or Archetype may stay with the current plan, whether or not a clearer explanation satisfies the audience. But the later a major change comes, the more difficult and expensive it becomes. Personally, I would not object to a delay. Archetype would gain more development time, and I might finally gain a computer that does not regard Exodus as a hostile celestial artifact. Verdict. Exodus has not automatically become a worse RPG because Jun is authored, but the disappointment is justified. Something changed, and the way the change was communicated is harder to defend than the decision itself. Archetype can still make this work, but it can no longer rely on players supplying the identity themselves. Jun now has to carry it.